I am continuing my journey from so many places far away to visit our wonderful Sunshine City where happiness reigns supreme every day. Overhead, amazing stars and planets show me which route to take, and I can sense the calming waters of Couchiching, our special little lake. I do gladly return to my hometown's bosom, where I once did live, laugh, and play. So please do not worry nor fret. I am getting close. I am on my way. I remember the bandstand, the beach, and French's hot dog stand, wrapped in the landscape of the Lake Couchiching shore, the Main Street, the Oval, and ODCVI, dances at the Pav, and oh, so much more. Perhaps I will stay and unpack my bags, and maybe I never more will roam. I seem to have rediscovered my childhood paradise. I am happy. I am home. In 1912, a book by Stephen Butler Leacock was unleashed upon the world, and it placed the mythical town of Mariposa at the center of the literary world's universe. Why don't we let Leacock's writing explain a little bit about the town using the opening paragraphs of his book? And the book, Sunshine Sketches of a Little Town. I don't know if you know Mariposa. If not, it is of no consequence, for if you know Canada at all, you are probably well acquainted with a dozen towns just like it. There it lies in the sunset, sloping up from the little lake that spreads out at the foot of the hillside on which the town was built. There is a wharf beside the lake, and lying alongside of it, a steamer that is tied to the wharf using two ropes about the same size as they use on the Lusitania. The steamer, well, it goes nowhere in particular, for the lake is landlocked. And there is no navigation for the Mariposa Belle except to run trips on the 1st of July and the Queen's birthday, and to take excursions of the Knights of Pythias and the Sons of Temperance to and from the local option townships. In point of geography, the lake is called Wissanotti, and the river running out of it, the Ossawippi, just as the main street of Mariposa is called Missinaba, and the county, Missinaba County. But these names do not really matter. Nobody uses them. People simply speak of the lake and the river and the main street. But I suppose this is just the same in everyone else's town as in mine, so I need lay no stress on it. The town, I say, has one broad street that runs up from the lake, commonly called Main Street. There is no doubt about its width. When Mariposa was laid out, there was none of that short-sightedness which is seen in the cramped dimensions of, say, Wall Street and Piccadilly. Missinaba Street is so wide that if you were to roll Jeff Thorpe's barbershop over on its face, it wouldn't reach halfway across. Up and down the main street are telegraph poles of cedar of colossal thickness, standing at a variety of angles and carrying rather more wires than are commonly seen at a transatlantic cable station. On the main street itself are a number of buildings of extraordinary importance. Smith's Hotel and the Continental and the Mariposa House and the two banks, the Commercial and the Exchange, to say nothing of McCarthy's Block, which was built in 1878, and Glover's Hardware Store with the Oddfellows Hall above it. Then, on the cross street that intersects Missinaba Street, at the main corner there is the post office, and the fire hall, and the Young Men's Christian Association, and the offices of the Mariposa News Packet. In fact, to the eye of discernment, a perfect jostle of public institutions. On all the side streets there are maple trees and broad sidewalks, trim gardens with upright calla lilies, and houses with verandas. To the careless eye, the scene on the main street of a summer afternoon is one of deep and unbroken peace. The empty street sleeps in the sunshine. What a town! What a town indeed! But we all know what town he was talking about, don't we? In this series of short video vignettes, we will strive to bring the Mariposa story forward and up to date. And to achieve our goal, I have enlisted the help of several good citizens of Mariposa, Orillia, to not only preserve the history of the community, but to do it in a fun and yet simplified version. After all, who amongst us could sit and watch a minutely detailed 200-hour documentary on the history of our Sunshine City? And we will, of course, take a brief look at the stories about some of the Orillians who have brought attention to our community through their good deeds, artistic and athletic prowess, and their contributions to the betterment of life for their fellow Canadians.
The Ojibwe people did not live in a village like the Huron did. The Huron would fortify themselves, especially in the winter months, and live in a palisaded longhouse or series, maybe a dozen longhouses, different families. We were spread out much like farmers are over the lay of the land. Beautiful sugar bush here, there might have been one or two families living near that. There'd be someone living in and around the Narrows with that ancient fish fence, 5,000-year-old fish fence that's been in operation up until 150 years ago. A family or two would be there. But a runner would come through when the time for the whole community needed to gather, and it would be at such and such home. It might be at your home this time, so you have to make sure you had extra firewood, extra food in, and we'd all come to your place. We'd set up our camp all around your camp, and we'd stay with you for 3, 4, 5 days. And the formal meetings would take place. Meanwhile, young people are meeting young people. Marriages are beginning to, you're wooing your sweetheart. Medicine knowledge is being swapped and changed. The change in technology, of the way of doing things, newer things coming here, especially the iron axe 400 years ago hits here. And going from stone culture to iron is a big thing. Okay, the Hurons are here 350 years. 8 to 12 years, the soil becomes baffed. All your firewood is now green growth, because you've taken every old stick of wood you could. They would literally pick up, move 25 miles, plunk down, and redevelop a new town. It's just slight hints and slight references that the Ojibwe people are in and around the Huron. So we know we were here because it's written by Jesuits, but they didn't think much of us because we hadn't converted yet. We were still those heathen, savage, scary people, I guess. And
many historians believe that Étienne Brûlé was the first European explorer to navigate this region of central Ontario in 1612. Samuel de Champlain would venture into this region, known as Huronia, 3 years later. Champlain originally operated out of Caagwe, a Huron village located northwest of present-day Orillia, near the rural community of Warminster. During one of his journeys, Champlain made this entry into his log. We left the village on the first day of September and passed along the shoreline of a small lake, 3 leagues from the village, where they catch a great deal of fish. which they then cure for the winter. The Huron slowly disappeared from Huronia. A combination of European-introduced diseases and the invading Iroquois were some of the reasons that led to their demise. Later on, the Ojibwe drove the Iroquois out of Huronia, and their territory would eventually stretch from Sault Ste. Marie south to Lake Ontario. Laurent Quiton St. George set up a trading post at the Narrows in 1802, and he eventually became one of the wealthiest men in Upper Canada by 1815. The government of the day purchased 1.6 million acres of land stretching from Toronto to Georgian Bay from the Ojibwe, so an inland trading route could be established. Sir John Cockburn then settled the Ojibwe bands along the Couchiching-Coldwater trade route in 1830. Chief William Yellowhead, whose Aboriginal name was Meskwaki, was the recognized leader of the Ojibwe who settled on the present-day site of Orillia.
Meskwaki has his lodge right where the Anglican Church is, downtown Orillia today, and he converts himself to the Church of England. He's initially wooed by the Methodist and becomes a Methodist, and then he decides he wants to be the same as the government that he's dealing with. So he converts to the Church of England to become an Anglican.
1833 had witnessed the building of 14 homes in a community named Newtown, part of present-day Orillia. Years later, friction broke out between the European settlers to this region and the Ojibwe, and so the Aboriginal tribe moved.
Pretty soon they don't want us in their church. Pretty soon they don't want us in their town. Pretty soon they don't want us on this beautiful, beautiful farmland that we're making ready. It's prime land. Prime land. And they convinced the government to convince us to walk away from it all. And the people from Bosley Island moved to Bosley Island, become known as the Chippewas-Bosley Island First Nation. Chief Snake takes his group down to Snake Island, and then eventually to Georgina Island. They also have Fox. Rama moves to Chief Island for a short bit, and they find land that had not been assigned, or had been... Land is being assigned to the people coming here. So if you're just a private, you qualified for, 200 acres? I can't remember. There's an exact amount. Now if you're a sergeant, you qualified for 2 blocks of land. If you're a captain, if you're a major, Shanty Bay is one guy was so high up in rank he gets a great big chunk of real estate. And there's conditions. You must clear X amount of it by, you're given, whether it's a 10-year time frame, to clear the land and make it workable. You have to clear a percentage. You can still have bush and such, but you need to get your crops in and such. So land that had been assigned or out and people walked away from it is the land that we acquire here in Rama Township. So that's the land we buy. We're one of 3 reservations in all of Canada that buy our own land. So in 1836 we begin the formal move from Coldwater Narrows Reservation to Chief Island, and we're living here and there as squatters before we get some land, and we move here formally in and around 36 and 37.